Welcome back to Reddit Boss r/relationship advice. And in today's story, my husband has some disturbing requests for after he's passed away. Let's get started. This one is really bizarre. I am sorry ahead of time. My husband of 12 years had some medical problems recently. The topic about end-of-life plans came up, and I asked if he wanted to be buried. He didn't want that, nor did he want to be cremated. My husband wants me to have his skull taken from his body and cleaned. Then he wants the skull put on the mantelpiece in the living room. The rest of his body he wants sent to one of those places that makes them gems out of bodies and made into 2 blue diamonds. He then wants those gems to be put in the eye socket of the skull to look like eyes. Then he can watch the family home and be passed down through the generations. My husband has always had a morbid, cultural, insensitive sense of humor. As such, when he'd mention it before he was sick, I thought he was joking. Turns out, he's not joking. He even asked me to do it so our skulls and matching eye gems can stay above the fireplace together. Adamantly refused. I tried talking to him, but he's firm that this is what he wants. I told him that it made me uncomfortable, but he said it was also for our kids to have, who are not currently old enough to weigh in on this discussion. I asked if this was his way of trying to live on with the family after death. He said, not really, no. I asked where he wanted the extra cremated remains from the gem company spread. He told me that he didn't want any remains, and to just have the biggest gems possible made and have the company dispose of the rest. I argued that he had no idea if his children would want the literal skull of their father. Further, which child would take the skull after I died? And in 2 or 3 generations, how would he feel if and when his descendants just sold this bizarre human skull at a garage sale because it means nothing to them? And finally, how was he going to feel about that fact that I, in my grief and trying to process the loss of him, would likely never take that skull out of the box, much less have to live with him, staring at me every time I sat on the couch? He essentially wasn't worried or didn't care about any of it. And regarding not taking it out of the box, it's the only time he seemed upset. He told me that was what he wanted, and I'd be ignoring his final wishes. I told him that he didn't even have to live with those final wishes for years to come, but it didn't matter. Part of me wants to get over my feelings, but I can't. I want to cry thinking of someone hacking a part of my husband and handing me his bones, and I feel anxiety over the thought of putting that skull with his blue eyes in my home until I die. I'm fine if he wants a burial. I'm fine with cremation, Viking funeral. That's weird thing where they turn you into tree food, whatever. I'm even fine with the gems on their own, but this whole skull thing is really bothering me. He won't budge, and he isn't joking. At this point, I'm thinking I would just do a simple cremation after he passes and spread his ashes on our property. But that seems sneaky and dishonest. But there is absolutely no way that I can comfortably live with what he's asking if he passes away before me. What do I do? My husband wants his final resting place to be our fireplace mantle in the form of his literal skull. This is to be complemented by 2 gems in the empty eye sockets made from his corpse. I'm deeply disturbed by this. Help. I did not expect this to get the attention it has, and I am grateful for so many of the responses. At the end of the day, I want my husband to feel listened to, respected, and loved. This process has cemented to me that I definitely will not be putting his skull on the mantle until I die. But there were many compromises and ideas suggested that I'm going to think about. When it feels right, I'll suggest some of them to him. For now, I'm going to sign off, give my husband a big hug, and think about this for a few days. He knows this post exists now. We've had a good conversation. We laughed a fair amount over the sheer ridiculousness of this hitting the front page and the comments it brought. And we both are confident we can reach a compromise that makes us both comfortable. We're not going to talk about it all today. We're just going to get pizza, cuddle, and tell each other dumb jokes for the rest of the day. Good night, Reddit. I'll update at some point in the future. Have you ever seen a skull up close? Those gems were just a bit smaller than golf balls, and an empty socket is much larger than the eyeball itself. I've attended a lot of cadaver labs. Ending up with 8 gemstones would give the owner some jewelry-sized gems. It would not result in even one gem being big enough for one eye socket. But back to the issue. Your husband wishes don't get the supersede your comfort levels. I start by having him actually talk to the gem making company. I suspect his 2 gem eyes would even be smaller without the entire body to work with. After that, I'll just point out that he's being incredibly insensitive and cruel in his requests. You're the one living with it. No, just no. It might not be legal. There are a lot of regulations on handling human remains, so give him the task of researching the legality, finding companies that will do it, and determining the costs, and acquiring a term life insurance policy that will cover those costs. He may discover that it's not legal, and that will be that. Also, make sure he understands that if his gem skull doesn't match you future interior decorating choices, it will go in a box in the garage. And if none of the kids want it, they'll sell it to an oddity shop. Legality is one of the first things I mentioned, and he showed me that not only it is legal, but he's already has a company in mind. The insurance policy covers quite a bit, but I'll look into the details a bit more and maybe ask a lawyer to confirm the legalities of said skull. Thank you. The main question this boils down to is, will you be happy the rest of your life honoring his final wishes? Or will it make him more comfortable in his final days with you letting him know that his plan is okay and you intend to honor it? Then after his passing, have your own reconsideration. For someone terminal, their feelings now matter. After the passing, your feelings matter. Tread lightly, loving, and knowingly. You have a good head on your shoulders. Continue to be considerate of his emotions, needs, while also take your own into consideration. A man at rest is a man at peace. I will recommend not fighting on this issue now. Most issues for couples are considerably a non-issue when the person is terminal. Make all your living moments count. Good luck and much love. It might be legal for him to physically have it done. What is not legal is the depth of his instruction. There is a limit to requests that can be made in wills. His death wishes does not outweigh the comfort of the living. Like I can leave my kid a house, but I cannot dictate that they must live in it. For example, my nan wanted to put it in her will that her house that she has left to my mother would never be sold on or rented out to an unmarried couple. The solicitor gently explained to her that it was enforceable. Much like your husband's wishes, he is looking to throw his weight around after he is dead. Permissible because he is afraid of either being forgotten or losing control. It's nonsense in any event. If he wants to do it, fine, but you are not required to have the skull in your house. It can reside in a safe deposit box until or unless someone wants it. Do not spend your husband's life insurance policy on something this stupid. You and your kids might need that money if you drop a single income family. If you don't spend it by college, you could pay for their college or down payments on their first homes and ensure you have a comfortable retirement and don't need to rely on your kids. Or worse, what happens if both of you pass away young? This money could be put into a trust for your kids and help with whoever will be raising them. I worked in the funeral and cemetery industry. Let him know the pain that he will always put you through. He would be a constant reminder that you are alone and that he died. It makes grieving more painful and harder when you just want to watch Netflix and reminded of his death. Also, just don't do it. Cremate him because that is what he is asking for ultimately. Cremains are nothing more than grinded bone that has been processed. I sold many funerals to people in hospice. There are few changed dramatically closer to the end. They wanted their family to be okay physically and financially. If he wanted you to spend all that money on something that brings pain, he should have paid for it prior. I think asking him to do the due diligence and seeing the reality and cost involved is an excellent idea. This may be a test in his mind of OP love and commitment to him. OP, find the right moment and let him know that you want to show your love and commitment to him. Right now, with that time that you have left together, fulfilling his request regarding what he wants done is his remain pales in comparison to that most precious thing that you have is the time left together. Honestly, when I pass, my plan is to make everything as simple as possible for the loved ones who need to wrap my affairs. It's a burden to them. It makes too elaborate and unreasonable. If I ever wanted my remains molded into a giant cat statue and my toe bones made into a necklace and hung on my favorite tree at the top of the mountain camp, on every summer after I die, I'll arrange all of that my own now and allow those still alive after I die time to grieve. It's not about me, it's about them. Speaking as someone who lost their dad at 16, 11 years now, I can tell you it would be extremely disturbing to see his skull. For some morbid, odd reason, the thought has occurred to me once or twice that by now his corpse has probably withered away to the bone, and I pictured him lying there no longer looking like my dad, but as skeleton. It's a horrible image. Please don't actually do that to your kids. They shouldn't have to see that. It's best if he immortalized forever in their minds young and whole. As an alternative, you can have his ashes made into enough gems for you and your kids, all if you can afford this, of course, fitted on appropriate pieces of jewelry that each one of you could wear and carry him with you throughout life. He could be there with his kids for all the milestones and achievements, but also a source of comfort and protection during hard times. This is probably what he really wants deep down. He has come up with the most fantastical and extreme way he could think of achieving this. Yeah, I feel the same way as my mom who died when I was 16. It has almost been a decade and is pretty haunting for me to even see her body enact at her Catholic funeral. I get that some people like getting that closure, but I was really ooped out by seeing her body. If it was her disembodied skull, it would have been 100 times worth. Also, I worked as a vet tech and have handled plenty of skeletons and skulls. I even own a sheep skull. Part of skulls are very fragile and difficult to clean. If you were to display a skull opening, it could yellow and collect dust, so you would need to maintain it very carefully. That seemed really traumatic to me personally. If it were a loved one, I get that he thinks it sounds cool, but I imagine it would be pretty upsetting to not only his immediate family, but to anyone who comes to his house and visit. Seeing his skull staring at them. My friend's husband recently passed and was in his mid-20s. He chose the tree option. It was really cool figuring out with her how to get his ashes in an urn, and gave family and friends an extra chance to talk about him and honor his wishes, as well as added his ashes to the soil. Now she has a small spaling and will have very solid and long-term way to remember him. Thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Reddit Boss. Until next time, take care.